Hi there and welcome back to the Music Making Mindset. I'm Brennan Anthony. Once again, I've got my partner in crime with me, Kris Unwin. Thank you, Kris, for joining us today.
Good to be here.
And the topic for today is learning about becoming a good musician, a performer. Let's hook in. For those of you who've started playing your instrument, started having some lessons or whatever, you're kind of at ground zero of learning to be a musician, learning how to play your instrument. We're going to talk to you about how you can learn to develop your abilities and skills as a musician. So let's hook into that. So mate, I guess the first question is, how did you come about deciding upon which instrument or that you wanted to play?
It's a bit of a funny story, actually. So when I was in year 5, I had the opportunity to join the orchestral band in primary school.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I actually wanted to do percussion, but I ended up getting put on clarinet. So I did a couple years of clarinet.
Not there's anything wrong with clarinet.
I did a couple years of clarinet and I really wasn't enjoying it. And then for going into year 7, because I was still in primary school for year 7 because it's changed a bit since then.
Yeah.
I talked to the conductor and I said, "Oh, can I switch to percussion because I'm more interested in that?" They let me do that, and then all of a sudden, I was enjoying playing music more. Go figure.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, with me, it started. Many of us, many of our guests and members on the site are classical musicians or people who play contemporary big band music or whatever. A lot of us start in that world, the big band world. Many school programs focus on that world in education. You don't have many high schools who have pop music bands, not prolifically anyway. So I was similar. I started in the classical world. So my mum got me piano lessons when I was young, and then she got me violin lessons when I was young. So I played the violin until I was grade 10, and I discovered girls, and the violin wasn't that cool. And I started playing sax in the school band and stuff like that, and that was a bit cooler. The interesting thing is, though, you know, where did I find my niche? And I guess some of you are trying to feel that. Like my son Ozzy, he plays a bit of keys, a bit of piano, he plays a bit of bass. But something starts to resonate with you. You start to feel, this is my lane, you know what I mean? And for me, it was all about the music I was listening to.
Absolutely.
High school, I started listening to synthwave music, like 80s synthwave music, and all of a sudden I became a synth player. Do you know what I mean? And playing the piano helped with that, but that's where I found my niche, and then singing took over as well. Was it similar to you?
Absolutely, yeah. So like I said, when I started playing percussion and drums, I started enjoying it a lot more, and that's because a lot of the music I was listening to as a kid was a lot of rock music, especially because rock music was the popular music at the time. You know, we're talking about 2005 to 2007 when I was
so young, mate.
Primary
For
school.
me, it was like 1975, 1978.
But rock music was the main pop genre, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, I enjoyed playing drums a lot more. And then the next instrument I picked up was guitar because I was listening to metal music as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started getting interested in singing while playing as well. So I got some singing lessons, and then later on in life, probably about 5 years ago, I started to get some lessons in synthesizers because I realized I need to be able to do that, and I'm interested in it as I started to listen to more and more music. And then I realized I need some technique in playing keys, so I got some piano lessons. It all just sort of builds, and you're right, it's usually based on the music that you're really interested in.
And don't think we've forgotten about you electronic musicians. I mean, hip-hop's the most consumed music on the planet. So a musical instrument or as a musician in that world will mean the programming of beats and the performative agency of using controllers and samples, right? And that's an instrument as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is.
And it's all about how you create music, and what floats your boat, like what resonates with you. Like I remember, gosh, my mum, I love her dearly. God bless you. Rest in peace, darling. She made me get up in the morning and practice bloody violin scales from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. And I just hated it. Do you know what I mean? And so I just stopped playing the violin. But, and I think that's really important. But at the same time, I can arrange string parts now because I played the violin. I understood that well. So let's just get it clear that whatever that world is for you, acoustic instruments, electronic instruments, amplified instruments, guitars, whatever that is, try and find something that really excites you, right? Something that is in your realm that you really dig and love. I think the love for music is so important. All right, let's keep going. What would you explain to people as to a process as how they could become better performers, like have better technique, better chops? How do they do that? Lessons, practice? What are some insights to that?
So I think it is gonna depend on the individual person to a degree. For me personally, I started getting lessons on drums pretty much as soon as I picked them up. So I was very fortunate that my parents funded that when I was a kid. So I got drum lessons for a very long time. I got guitar lessons, and then later in life, like I say, when I moved into getting some vocal lessons, piano lessons, I paid for those myself. And for me, the way that I learn, that was really important for me.
How important was who the teacher was?
Also very important, yeah. So I remember the drum teacher I had originally, I had him for many, many years, and I was very fortunate that the first teacher I had was really, I resonated with him, after he left that teaching institution, I had a couple of other drum teachers come and go, and none of them were quite the same. And it was about that point where I sort of thought, I was still, young, but I thought, okay, I've learned enough from the lessons. I'm going to move into guitar lessons, and I think the teacher's very important.
And finding that right teacher, that's something that you have to do. It's like you have to go into that world. I was like Kris, when I went to university, I did jazz piano. I did classical piano first, and then I realised that wasn't my thing, and I wasn't very good either. So then I did jazz piano, and the first jazz piano teacher I had, was really good. He was awesome, and then he left the institution, and I got another jazz piano teacher, and he wasn't that great at all. So much so that I moved to jazz vocal, and moved over to doing singing. And they didn't have a jazz vocal teacher, so they moved me into classical vocal coaching, which was just completely wrong for me. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's really important that a good teacher will help you in your world. They won't try and shape you to their world, right? They'll try and develop you as you. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, so with my first drum teacher that I had for many, many years, he did the same thing. Obviously, when I was starting, I was 12 years old, thereabouts. So, obviously I didn't have much of a creative voice at that age, but my teacher, noticed that I like rock music. I was bringing in some rock songs. He started suggesting other songs to learn that were in that sort of realm, and then starting to, break me out into other genres and rudiments and things like that.
So, okay, you've got a teacher, you're having some lessons. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about practice. What advice would we give to people about how good practice can help you? Is there such a thing as bad practice?
I think it's a bit of a double-edged question again.
I know there's a thing called bad practice. Because I used to do it all the time. Like, for me, it's like, if you don't have a purpose with your practice, then you can go around in circles a little bit.
I would still, this is why it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I would still argue that even if you're picking up your instrument and running scales and not thinking about what you're doing, I would still say that's better than scrolling on your phone, as a bare minimum. But
when I learned the instruments, there were no mobile phones, all right? And Mum wouldn't let me pick up the chord phone. But what you're saying is doing is better than not doing.
Absolutely. But that being said, there are certain things that you should be practicing. And when you're practicing, you should also be mindful about what you're actually trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think one of the things I was doing for quite a while when I picked up my guitar was just run through the modes of G. So G Ionian, and then, you know, A Dorian, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I would just sort of run through them, and I guess it like warmed me up to play, but I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing.
I was trying to be a pro golfer when I was young, and my golf coach always used to say to me, he used to say, there's no practice without purpose. Because as a golf player, it's similar to practicing an instrument. You'd get on the driving range and you'll hit 100 balls, practicing mixolydian, pentatonic, whatever. That's the same thing. But if you're not working on something with those 100 balls, like are you working on tempo, or are you working on ball striking, or the shot that you're trying to hit, what shape it is, what kind of tone you're trying to get out of your instrument. You know, there's focus on practice and purpose. At the same time, you want to have fun when you're practicing too, right? Like, it's got to be an enjoyable thing.
Absolutely.
Are there modes of practice which are more fun than others?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, you know, say for example, we're talking about running scales. It is important to do that, to get used to the feeling, say for guitar, for example, getting used to the feeling of those scales, knowing how to play them without having to, you know, stare at the fretboard.
Sure.
Getting used to that muscle memory, but that's not usually a fun way to play. The more fun way to practice is to be, you know, playing to music or playing with other musicians. And that's also a really important thing to be doing while you're practicing as well, is having fun so that you actually want to pick up your instrument every day. And
don't you think, like, technique is one thing? Like, you can practice your modes as a guitarist, you can practice your rudiments on the drum kit, various time signatures, etc. But then once you reach a level and you start performing, which we've talked about in another podcast, you bring a little bit of personality into your playing. Like, just because you've practiced the pentatonic scale doesn't mean you can't diversify and improvise a little bit to bring some personality into your playing. And I guess that takes a little bit of confidence in your ability.
Yeah, and I mean, the confidence comes with time and with the repetition. And yeah, building up that muscle memory as well. I think that's important to give you the confidence to then start branching out and not feeling too, you know, not getting too cagey or getting too tense as soon as it comes up to.
And what about this? What about when I was younger, there was no YouTube. There was no, and, you know, music was on records and stuff. Like, but you guys can play along to music on YouTube. Is that a useful way to practice?
Yes. So for me, one of the most fun things I can do with practicing is playing to music. Now, I think there's a bit of, you have to have that mindset of actually focusing on what you're doing, not just, you know, if you're playing along to a song, that's great. But if you're not trying to analyze what you're doing and learn from that, you know, maybe you notice, say, for example, playing drums or guitar, that you're pushing ahead of the beat, or, you know, you're bending a note too far or not far enough. You know, you have to be able to pick those things up as you're playing, or recording it and looking back at it as well.
So developing your abilities, recording. If you can record yourself and listen back to yourself, and even have others listen back to yourself, you can learn a lot from that, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a super fancy recording. Like, in that regard, it can just be, you know, a video or
a phone
voice memo on your phone.
Yeah.
Just something that you can listen back to and, you know, not be afraid to critique that or to share it with other people for feedback.
Share it with other people, mate. Like, if you can, you know, play, you know, have fellow-minded musos listening to you play, and you're okay, you're open, leave your ego at the door for them to say, hey, listen, I think, you know, your technique's great, but the dynamics of jumping out a little bit, you know what I mean? Being okay to accept a little bit of criticism is really important. That's the way we get better.
Yeah, and noticing those gaps in your knowledge, which we've also talked about before, but being able to notice that and then have the confidence to go, okay, this is what I need to start focusing on to
not just the confidence, but also the invested attitude to go back and practice those things and go, instead of sitting in your bed playing along to YouTube to learn a song, because you can do that, right? That's cool. YouTube's cool to learn a song, but then sitting and go, okay, now I'm going to play along and I'm going to really focus on my dynamics.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Having that focus. What am I actually working on here? And then perhaps work on, okay, now I'm just going to sit back on the beat a little bit and feel how that goes. What about understanding your instrument?
Yeah, it's also a really fundamental part of being a good musician. So I think, drums or guitars would be good examples for this. But say, for example, with guitar, knowing how it works for a fundamental understanding of like, okay, the strings are vibrating, they're either resonating in the acoustic guitar or they're getting picked up by the pickups. The wiring from the pickup goes from pickup to the output jack, which is going out to an amp. And then obviously understanding how to dial in a tone from your amp. Just those fundamental things, but then also things like, understanding the finer details of tuning, about setting up your guitar, your string height, your intonation. These are all things that are going to, help you understand your instrument, but also make the experience
so much
nicer. If you're playing a guitar and the strings are too high or too low and you don't like that feeling, you should be able to know how to change that.
So any of the terms we're talking about, like intonation, setting a guitar up, if you don't know what these are, just Google them. Like it's really, the internet's an amazing resource to learn. But so that's the world of guitars. Similar with drums, right? Like tuning drum kits and
tuning drums is a whole other beast. But and there's lots of different ways to do that as well. Which compared to a guitar, you tune it, you get the intonation right. Tuning drums there's a million different ways you can do it. And again, like not having any shame in looking at YouTube. For me, I actually noticed that setting up guitars is a bit of a gap in my knowledge. I could do it, but there was always something that was frustrating me or not quite set up right, or I'd have to go back and change it.
Absolutely.
And, that was even recently, that was in the last few years that I was like, okay, I need to really get better at this so that in a producing context, if someone comes in with a guitar that's not set up right, I can go, boom, 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 just fix it.
I'm not a guitarist. I can play the guitar, right? But I wouldn't hire myself out as a guitarist. And I'm also a bit of a tired ass when it comes to money. So I taught myself how to set up guitars because I didn't want to pay someone $250 to do it for me.
And I did the same thing as well.
But I was like you. I was like, I have a knowledge of this, but there's people who can do it better than me. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got a Dan Electro 12 string, which I just struggle getting the intonation right on that. And sometimes it's best for you to get other people to set your instrument up. But at the same time, if you just need to sand a nut down on an acoustic guitar to get the action a little bit lower, and that's going to help you, and you can learn about how to do that, I'm all about learning. If you can take control of your own learning instead of relying on Kris to come and tune my drum kit all the time, then I think you're taking control of your life. Last thing I want to talk, we're still talking about, going from someone who can play the guitar to becoming a pretty decent guitarist, lessons, practice, recording and listening back, getting feedback. For me, collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
playing with others, not just sitting in your room playing to YouTube, right?
It's really important. You can, and we've talked about this again as well, you can get as good as, Joe Satriani on guitar or something, but if you are then not listening to other musicians when you're playing in a room with them, it's all going to fall apart. If you're not listening to the tempo that the rhythm section's setting, or, if you're the drummer, if you can't keep a consistent tempo and that's what you're trying to do, serving the song, it's all going to fall apart because people are relying on each other to, create this one.
And this goes for electronic musicians as well. If you're going to produce music, you're going to need to play that music live, most generally. And so using your performative techniques, if you're an electronic musician, you're still going to work with, say, some musicians who'll play instruments or some singers to sing over the top of your music if you're not doing that yourself. And so collaborating with these people in a performative context only builds your abilities as a performer, as a musician, right? And I guess the biggest thing is, we highlight this a lot, you got to communicate with these people. And I think it's important to have your own opinion on what you think is good and what you think is bad, but I think you've also got to be open to people's perspectives on how things can be better.
Yeah, and say for example, if we're talking about dialing a tone on a guitar amp, being able to do that yourself is great. Being able to collaborate and communicate with other people is also important, because if you're a session guitarist, you're going in to play I don't know, a jazz gig or something, and you've got, you know, your PV 5150 or something, you know, and you've got this, you know, heavy metal tone dialed in, you know, you need to be able to communicate with people who are...
Just learn from this, right? You're talking, how long have you been out of uni?
About 5 or 6 years.
So 5, 6 years out of uni, you learn the realities of being a musician, right? Trying to earn dollars as a musician. And I think one of the greatest things you can learn is flexibility and diversity will help you have longevity. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome if you live in the Pantera world of electric guitar tones, right? If that floats your boat, that's awesome. But not everyone's going to want that. And so I think being able to work in other people's musical worlds as a musician is really important. Guys, so we've kind of talked about some really cool stuff here. We've talked about if you're starting out, find something that really resonates with you, something that excites you to play. Find the music that you love and start playing the musical instruments of any type that excites you. I think you've got to have that love for it. Like I will never pick a violin up again.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned this. What we should also talk about is finding the right instrument for you. So not just the instrument that you want to play, but say it's guitar, finding the right guitar.
Yeah.
That
so look, we've got a wonderful Hagstrom hollow body hanging up behind Kris with humbucking pickups, but that may not be the right guitar, especially if you're in a prog metal band.
Well, even if you're a smaller sized person and you're trying to play a big hollow body guitar.
It's a big hollow body guitar.
You know, you want to find something that feels good to you, like the weight and how it feels in your hands.
Absolutely. And classical guitars, like I've got a nylon string guitar in there, right? And the neck is so thick. It's a thick-necked classical guitar. And if someone had a little tiny hand, they'd struggle playing it. Do you know what I mean? So when you do find your instrument, I think that's really, and that's where a good teacher can help you find the right instrument that suits you, not only as a musician, but also as a person. We all have physical attributes, so I think that's really important. So find an instrument that resonates you, find music that really interests you, find a teacher that's going to help you be you, find it and maybe challenge you.
Yeah, and I think also keeping in mind budgets as well. If you're starting an instrument, you do not need the fanciest instrument in the world. You know, there are plenty of really, really good budget-friendly options that are really good quality. And, you know, if it's something like a guitar, you can also upgrade that over time. You can change the pickups. You can, you know.
And I think learning's the same. You can hire an instrumental teacher or whatever for a 1-to-1 hour lesson. But I think you can equally learn a lot of content by sitting and playing and watching YouTube. It really comes down to you being accountable for your own learning and development. What works best for you? Sometimes you may need that commitment of going to seeing this person, but if you're a really organised, self-motivated person and playing with YouTube is going to help you, then go for it, right? Yeah,
and I mean, when I was actually getting guitar lessons, I was notoriously bad for not practicing. And it was really good that I was going to this guitar teacher every week and he was saying, did you practice? And I was like, not really.
That was me with the violin, but as soon as I got on synths, mate, you know, as soon as I started playing with synths, you couldn't get me off them. And I guess that's why you got to do what you love, right?
Yeah, well, I think for me as well, it came with age, you know, because I was I was 13, 14, 15 when I was getting guitar lessons. So I was, you know,
and then you move out and you got to pay rent and you realise you got to make money. So
it was also just, I got more and more interested in playing guitar. So then I wanted to pick up and practice.
Awesome.
You know.
So you've done that. You've got a good teacher. You're developing as a musician. I think the biggest thing we highlighted towards the end as you start developing your craft is record yourself, get some feedback, and then collaborate with others. Get out and jam, maybe do some gigs, get into a performative space, and be hungry for their opinions on what makes you tick as a good or bad musician. And, you know, baby steps, one step at a time, right?
Absolutely.
Keep working.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think the really important things, like we're in a time at the moment where instant gratification is really...
Yeah, I want it now.
You know, it's a... I would say a problem, but you know, that's a whole other conversation. But being prepared to put that work in, because if you really love music and you want to be doing it, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time, and you're never going to know everything. You know, say for example, with my guitar skills, I'm now having to teach myself how to improvise more, because what I'm more interested in is interesting chord voicings or interesting chord progressions as opposed to playing lots of licks or
Structured.
solos.
Yeah.
So, and also because I actually do a bit of guitar teaching now, I've again noticed that gap in my knowledge. I'm like, okay, I actually need to practice this and get better at this. Yeah.
All right, team. Hey, vocalists, if you happen to get through all this, good on you. We can do a similar thing for you in another podcast. So look out for that one. All right, guys. Kris, thank you so much, mate.
Thanks as always.
Love having you here. All right, Music Making Mindset. If you want help with this, jump on the site, subscribe. Let us help you with your musical journey. Look after yourselves.